Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. I'm Peter Gross, co-host of the original Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins and Jim Fowler. For more than 50 years, Wild Kingdom explored wildlife and our natural world. Tonight's episode and many others focus on the timeless value of wildlife conservation. Wild Kingdom played a critical role in changing public attitudes about the importance of animals for the health of our planet and our own quality of life. We challenge viewers to learn about animals and get involved in conservation in their local communities. That call to action resulted in more visits to local zoos, nature preserves, and even observing animals in their natural habitats. And that connection with animals benefits all of us in the Wild Kingdom. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom is presented by Mutual of Omaha.
Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. When we hear the term jungle, we immediately think of Africa, India, or South America. Yet along our own country's Gulf Coast are numerous subtropical jungles. These are pockets of swampy wilderness which are dense with plant growth and teeming with wild animals, some of them dangerous. These American jungles are crisscrossed by sluggish waterways called bayous, and many have specific names like Alligator Bayou or Eagle Bayou. Even though such areas are often surrounded by civilization, they're seldom penetrated by man because of the difficulty and danger of doing so. As a result, the bayous are havens for wildlife. Our story today occurs in one such portion of this American jungle. We call it A Day at Bobcat Bayou.
Just after dawn, the bayou seems serene, but already activity has begun. A young male bobcat, newly wakened, shakes the wetness of dew from his feet. And then pauses briefly to perform a ritual of great importance to him: the sharpening of his claws. Those fiercely hooked claws are even more important to his survival than his teeth. The act is instinctive, and he hones them carefully and often. As always, he is keenly alert as he begins his bayou prowling, aware of everything around him. Not even the silent form of a barred owl settled down for the day escapes his notice. He is just a yearling, and there is much for him to learn in order to survive in bayou country. Across the bayou from him, there is activity in an egret rookery. On low, waxy-leaved swamp bushes, the males, resplendent in breeding plumage, are courting attracted females with their handsome feathers. Among them, in startling contrast, stands a beautifully plum-colored Louisiana heron. New arrivals dip and slant their wings for landing. Soon this area will ring with their harsh croaks and flapping. But the heron's presence is resented. The male egret prefers to display his own feathered finery without distraction. This egret activity has been seen before by the bobcat, and now his attention goes elsewhere. A skunk carves a fleeting trail through bayou duckweed. There, a dragonfly alights on a projecting twig. Beyond them, a mother raccoon observes a peril unseen by her offspring. She hustles the youngster out of the water and well away, lest he become somebody's breakfast. Nor does a water snake's movement escape the bobcat's alert eye. A stir of hunger within him, the bobcat moves on, having no eye for the beauty growing in the bayou between himself and the rookery, crisp yellow water lilies. Another bayou denizen also pays little attention to such fragile loveliness. He's the comic element of Bobcat Bayou, an otter, for whom life above water or under it is mostly a game, and who finds exploring and playing as important as eating. Like the bobcat, little escapes his notice, but he's equipped with more fun-filled curiosity. A soft-shelled turtle swimming in the bayou's clear waters is always sport to follow. The otter is much the better swimmer, though this is one of the faster turtles. The turtle doesn't care for the game and ends it by heading for a cluster of weeds in which to hide. Tiring of sport with the uncooperative turtle, the otter swims casually, occasionally lifting his head to see above water. Something attracts his attention on shore. Becoming too bold in a situation like this could well get the otter into trouble. The otter's sense of humor is better developed than the bobcat's, and the cat's hungrier now. Frustrated by the escape of his prey, he angrily strikes at a stub of root. He is still determined to dine on otter. But the otter has fooled him with a clever diversion. That's not the otter. It's an alligator. Small, but bad-tempered. Since it seems the otter's out of reach, gator will suffice. But the alligator objects. Even when small, he's a formidable opponent. It becomes only too obvious to the bobcat that there is prey around much simpler to catch than a vile-tempered alligator, even a small one. The otter, perhaps. The bobcat's sharp claws and great speed make him a decided menace to the otter, who now decides to press his luck no further. The cat is left behind, still hungry. The sun's nearly straight up now, and the young bobcat has still had no luck hunting. Ahead, a movement on a tree trunk. A snake, not a cottonmouth, but a water snake. This snake knows his safest refuge is in the bayou's warm, still waters. The cat hesitated too long, and the quarry is gone. For the second time this morning, an alligator. He's much smaller than the first. He appears threatening, but on land, he's very vulnerable. Again, the bayou waters offer sanctuary for one predator escaping another. When fully grown, the alligator is the most formidable creature of the bayou country, in water or out. His powerful swimming ability, the fierceness of his jaws, and menace of lashing tail make him safe from any natural predator. But when young, even this watery haven is not entirely safe. The otter is swifter and more agile, and he follows the little swimming alligator with consummate ease for the sole purpose of pestering him. But though he'll tease many of the bayou inhabitants above water or below, the otter takes care to avoid the reach of the alligator-snapping turtle, who with his long neck, lightning-striking speed, and razor-edged jaws could not only give him a severe bite, but might hang on with unbreakable grip until the otter's air was gone and he drowned. He leaves, and the turtle, having paid no attention to the intruder, moves toward some weeds, where he'll settle rock-like on the bottom and attempt to snatch the first unwary fish to come close. Meanwhile, the otter swims on toward a clump of roots on shore, where he often plays. But another bayou resident is already there. An adult gray fox on that root clump is momentarily distracted by a hairy woodpecker. She takes a grub to her nest tree and feeds it to her offspring. The presence of the fox frightens the young bird. The fox herself is suddenly fearful as she studies the ground below her. A cottonmouth moccasin, one of the bayou country's most dangerous inhabitants. Having successfully avoided the snake, the fox encounters another reptile, the alligator-snapping turtle. This one has made a rare appearance on land to lay eggs. She has already finished laying and burying them. And now she begins the difficult trek back to the water. Her massive bulk, virtually weightless when buoyed by water, is a great and difficult weight for her to move on land. The fox is no threat to her. Once back in the water, she will not re-emerge entirely for another year. The fox moves on. It's a bad place to stop to scratch. A hive of bees is close. Thinking themselves threatened, they attack. Instinct tells the fox that rubbing the ground helps ease the pain and dislodge the honeybees. In her blind haste to get away from this highly unpleasant, bee-ridden area, she plunges off directly toward the bobcat, who is again honing his claws and still very hungry. Though bigger than the fox, the bobcat is not accustomed to such confrontation. And the frightening fury and speed of this fox startles and unnerves him. And he is somewhat fearful about pressing the attack. Instinctively now, the bobcat heads back toward the bayou, where there is greater likelihood of finding prey he can handle. An armadillo heads for cover. Its armor is impervious to the bobcat's claws and teeth. A small nutria catches the eye of the bobcat. But he is still reluctant to give up on this larger and meatier prey in favor of the rodent. As an adult, he could kill the armadillo, but at this time, it is just too difficult for him to handle. The nutria will be easier. He begins his stalk. And now the young bobcat gives an example of the hunting skill he will refine with maturity. At long last, success for the hungry bobcat.
More than half the day at Bobcat Bayou was gone when the bobcat finished his meal. And now he headed back to the seclusion of his den, alert as always for any danger that he might encounter along the way.
Pleasantly full from his meal, the bobcat now runs into an entirely unexpected hazard, the same one the fox underwent during the morning. Because this is his first encounter with bees, it takes the bobcat longer to get the message. He cannot understand what is happening. The honeybees become more riled each time he returns, and now they boil from the hive and attack him furiously. Though the bees have not pursued him this far, the young bobcat fears they're still below, and he's taking no chances about coming down yet. And in a neighboring tree, rudely awakened by the strange commotion, a barred owl grows nervous. The cat's peculiar actions have alarmed the owl considerably. The bobcat, however, still feels the pain of the stings and is restless. The owl decides to seek his desired solitude somewhere else. But a glance around indicates he's picked the wrong roost again. Red-winged blackbirds. And there is nothing the blackbird seems to enjoy more than to plague an owl. This is one owl who has had his share of pestering for one day. And so the only refuge is swift flight, leaving the blackbirds far behind and quite proud of their achievement. The bobcat is far too wrapped up in his own problems to pay them any mind. He has to decide how he intends to get off a very limber branch like this without breaking a neck in the process. Since the owl refused to cooperate in their game, the blackbirds need a substitute. A passing crow obliges, though unwillingly. The crow, who will often similarly attack an owl or hawk, now finds himself harried by one whose flight is far more maneuverable than his own. In the late afternoon sunlight over Bobcat Bayou, the redwing attacks vigorously, aiming at the crow's nape and back in an effort to rip out feathers at each pass. The second redwing joins the attack, and no maneuver on the part of the harassed crow can seem to shake his smaller antagonists. There is only one escape, and that is to wing away from this place as rapidly as possible. The bobcat still has his problem, and patience is wearing thin. The bees are now quite obviously gone, and he is suddenly very uncomfortable balancing himself on this springy branch. Though lacking in finesse, descent is rapid and safe. And now, wearied by his highly eventful day at the bayou, the bobcat heads toward his distant den to rest. The activity in this swamp country subsides during the late afternoon, and there is a sense of quiet and sleepiness reign. Home is near now. Something alive is in his den. Unafraid but wary, the young bobcat approaches cautiously. Here is the final frustration of the day for the bobcat, and at first it seems much less trouble just to give up and look for someplace else to spend the night. The intruder has a powerful weapon. Having had experience with skunks before, the cat's inclination is to leave it alone. But suddenly it is just too much to endure. The bobcat decides on a showdown. In some way, this skunk senses that the bobcat wants not retaliation or food, but repossession. So, luckily for the bobcat, the skunk has held his fire and casually ambles away. And the cat is home at last, with another full day of experiences behind him. They will guide him in his future wanderings through the wilderness of his home territory, here at Bobcat Bayou.
And so the day has come to an end at Bobcat Bayou. Tonight, having fed well during the day, our bobcat will sleep in his den, resting up for the new experiences to come during his next period of activity. Perhaps he will sleep right through the next day and then prowl by night, for he can hunt as well then as by daylight. But now a sort of tranquility settles over Bobcat Bayou as the day-moving creatures settle for the night, and the night creatures have not yet fully aroused. Whether by day or by night, the bayou country, America's jungle, remains an extremely important habitat, which man must make every effort to continue to preserve. For here live a multitude of creatures who could survive nowhere else. Creatures who live fairly close to man, and yet rarely encounter him in this swampy, moss-draped segment of the wild kingdom.
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Like what you saw? Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more exclusive content. And visit our website at wildkingdom.com.